Hey team, Katie here from Equestrian Movement, and today we are talking about how to ride the perfect halt. So I'm going to give this one away to you straight away. We're not going to talk too much about Sully just yet. The perfect halt is the halt where your horse thinks about halting, organizes their legs to halt, and then you execute the halt. So strategically setting up an intentional lesson plan, how are you going to guide them into the behavior, how are you going to mark the behavior, and how are you going to motivate them to do it again. So we're working with Sully today, and she is a little green Arab filly, and this is going to be our first ridden session together, and you'll see under saddle that she's super unbalanced and wobbly. She does have a little bit of a problem turning as well because she is struggling with some stifle lock issues, which make balancing me, carrying me, and turning a bit tricky for her. So I adapted our halt cue for her because the one rein halt is particularly tricky to do when we are working with our horses that have stifle lock, because the one rein halt sets them off balance and can sometimes make them buck because it hurts their stifles. So what I have done with Sully instead is lifted the inside rein up and onto her neck so that she can differentiate the cue between turning and contact, and then so she knows what halt means. So we do our in-hand work first because this is our cueing work. How does she know what the aid for stop is? So traditionally we're using the bit pressure to create pain. So the horse is seeking the release of pain to find the answer. But ideally that's what we're trying to avoid doing, and if you use it that way, if you're using the bit that way, even if it's unintentionally, then your horse isn't necessarily listening to your aid properly. They're just trying to make the pain go away. So we like to work with super soft bits, make sure that our cueing is on point. We have consent and willingness. So you can see how I asked for consent to the whip to do our in-hand work. We have mental relaxation. One of our foundational skills under saddle is relaxation and swing. Physical relaxation and swing comes from mental relaxation first. And then we can see that we do our connection work here. This is a lot of how I motivate Sully. So Sully has a little bit of itch, which works in my favor because it means that she really enjoys being scratched. So if I want to do a little bit of connection work, get her to check in with me, where's her focus, where's her attention, is she with me, then I'm going to do some scratching and togetherness through neutral grooming. The other thing that you will see is there's a little bit slow moving into the forward. Some of that is balance and some of that is confidence. So when we start getting into this position of being behind them and in more of a driving position where they have to take the lead, we can end up with our horses having a little bit of confidence in, taking the lead, and confidence in that they know what the correct answer is. So you can see here where I've installed that rein aid to say halt because of her balance with regards to her stifle lock. You can see even on the ground, just with some turns, where we get some resistance to the bit just on the turn because of the stifle lock issues. So I've cued in on the ground that if I lift my rein and take it across her neck, then that means stop. And so this is what I teach my students, right, is that you can teach your horse anything as long as you understand the principles of guide the behavior, mark the behavior, motivate the behavior. You can teach your horse to do a canter every time you do a handstand, as long as you can figure out how to guide them into the canter when you do the handstand. You can figure out how you can mark them that the canter was the correct answer to you doing a handstand, and you can motivate them to do it again next time. So this is really important that we are thinking strategically, we're structuring and planning out our lesson so that we're setting our horse up for success and we're making it impossible to impossible for us to not succeed. And so then we can take those cues into the saddle. You can see where, she takes that step. I give her a pat. That's her motivation to do it again. Yes, good girl. Thank you. When I put my legs on, I want you to walk. Yes, good girl. Thank you. So opportunities to praise. How are you going to motivate them to do it again? A lot of our aids in the saddle are pressure-based aids, so it's the release of pressure, but we're also looking for praise and reward because that's what's going to get our horse on our team working with us. And so then you can see just lifting the rein, she understands that means stop. So she thinks stop, she organizes her balance, and she stops. One of the problems that we can have in the saddle is that we forget that our horses are horses and we try to ride them like bikes or cars or motorbikes, where you think that when you put the brakes on, they stop. If you think about yourself, if you had someone tell you to run to the other side of the arena and then they yell stop, because you're thinking about running, you're not thinking about stopping. And so this is the main reason why the horses don't stop under saddle, is because if you have them thinking about forward and then you pick up the reins to say stop, they're not thinking about the reins or the bit pressure as the word stop. They're just thinking, oh, this piece of metal in my mouth is super uncomfortable. I'm going to argue with it. I'm going to toss my head. I'm going to pull through it. I'm going to run through it. So it's really important that we have this really clearly laid out intentional lesson plan. How are we going to guide them into a halt from bit pressure? How are we going to let them know that the halt is the right answer? And then how are we going to motivate them to do it again? And so we then think about our holistic horse training skills, where it's like we've got our skill set laid out in our training plan there. How am I going to guide? How am I going to mark? How am I going to motivate? But then it's really listening to and paying attention to your horse. So our horses don't read the textbook. They don't know that 2 reins means stop. It's up to us to teach them that. And a 2-rein halt is not going to work particularly well with Sully because of the way that it offsets her balance with her stifle lock issues. So you can adapt it. Listen to your horse. Are they responding to that properly? The other way that we do it is taking a deep breath in and then breathing out through our lower back into our heels. All of the horses that I compete on, their brakes are actually in my ankles. When I drop my heel, they stop. And so it's how we strategically set up the pathway of consequence, that if you breathe out and drop your heels first and then you follow through into the halt, then your horses learn to respond because you drop your heel, not because you pull your reins, and then you don't need to pull on their mouth to get them to stop. So it's really clearly being able to think, what is my horse thinking? And being able to feel, what is my horse thinking? When you ride your halt, is your horse thinking stop? Are they organizing themselves into the stop? Or are they just trying to balance you? Are they just trying to not fall over? Are they feeling the bit pressure and going, I hate the bit, and tossing their head in the air? Or I hate the bit, and running through it and pulling and dragging you or snatching it? So what we're trying to do for acceptance of contact in the saddle is have hands that our horses can trust and have confidence in. And so being able to do that is understanding the process of cueing, intentional lesson plans, guide, mark, motivate, but then listening to our horse. Listening to our horse is their half of the conversation. Our half of the conversation is the lesson plan and how we guide them into the behavior. Their half of the conversation is how they respond to how we have set that lesson plan up. And then it's up to us to adapt to them to figure out what's going to work best for them and what's going to make this easy for them, and how it can be fun and they can enjoy learning. And so they come into the ridden training session excited to learn, excited to work, and excited to be ridden. So that comes down to being able to listen to our horses. Are they enjoying what they're doing? Do they understand? Are we being clear, or are we unbalancing them and creating pain? That's it for today. Until next time, happy trails. Enjoy a little bit of Sully here, enjoying her scratches.